This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Good morning, it's Wednesday and it's time for my bold predictions for this week's game. I think there's a number of ways that things can go this week. Always interesting, always fun, a division game, and always, more important what happens in these division games than any other games, not just because they count twice towards the playoffs, but because that in the AFC North, there is no asterisk for any team that you beat. There is no, oh, but it was the Titans. There is no, oh, but it was this. Oh, this, that. No, you beat an AFC North team. You know that you beat a really good football team. Pittsburgh Steelers, still a good team. Baltimore Ravens, still a good team. The Cincinnati Bengals, still a good team. No matter what anybody says about them, we know that they're solid teams, solid franchises, especially if you're the Cleveland Browns. If you win one of those games, they're very important. So, some people are going to take those games with more stock than a game versus the Titans because, one, we aren't as familiar with how the Titans roll, what their organization is like on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't mean the same. Even though I think the Titans are pretty well ran, I don't think everybody will be there because it's not the same as beating a division opponent. This week, you get that opportunity to do the same thing you did against the Titans, against the Baltimore Ravens. Will it end up the same way? Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of these matchups. Let's talk about some of my predictions. First thing first, I'm going to start with David Njoku. I think this is the week that David Njoku becomes a big part of the game plan for all of you David Njoku fantasy owners. I think this is finally your day. There's a number of things that make me think this. The most prevalent thing on my mind when I think of David Njoku having a big day is how the Baltimore Ravens have to get pressure. If you watch the Baltimore Ravens this year, you will notice that they don't really trust their front four to get pressure. Right now, it is some mixture of Jadeveon Clowney and maybe Ojabo. I think he's still healthy. I know Odafe is not healthy right now, but I think it's Ojabo right now. And then they have Matabuke in the middle, and then they have Brandon Williams in the middle, right? They have some solid guys in the middle. They have some edges that they're trying to see what they got there at edge. So they don't trust their front four. And honestly, Baltimore's always been a blitz heavy team. They've always liked to send extra people. Well, the three guys that Baltimore loves to send on blitzes the most are Kyle Hamilton, Pat Queen, Roquan Smith. In that order, by the way. Kyle Hamilton 1, Pat Queen, Roquan Smith. And also, I would say if you're the Browns, you have to worry about it in that order. Kyle Hamilton is the most dangerous blitzer they have. I know all the hype goes to Roquan Smith. I know Roquan Smith is a really good linebacker. Now, is he the best linebacker in the NFL? I don't think that. I think there's a real question of how good he is versus where the hype has been for him. Nonetheless, if he has a good game, he'll make me look like an idiot, and that won't be the first time. So, I'll put it out there. But I don't think he is anywhere close to the guy that people talk about him being. People talk about him being, almost a future Hall of Famer, an elite linebacker. I just don't believe that. I think he's a real disciplined linebacker. I think you're not going to get a lot of play action stuff around him. He's going to be where he has to be. He's a absolutely 100% sure tackler. He's special in the run game, but he has his weaknesses, right? I don't believe him to be like a Fred Warner. When I look at Fred Warner, I'm like, what you going to do about him? Like, I'm sweating about Fred Warner and playing him in the San Francisco 49ers right now. I'm sweating about that. I'm not sweating about Roquan Smith. Now, I could be wrong on that, but there that is. You know where I stand. But Kyle Hamilton, you should sweat about him a little bit. He's a little dangerous, right? He's a good cover guy, but where he's at his best is when he's doing those slot corner responsibilities, kind of the position he plays. I know a lot of you who are familiar with his work from Notre Dame are going to think he's a free safety. That's not what he does for this Baltimore team. He plays a lot of slot and he plays a lot of linebacker. Think of him as their Grant Delpit, but he's really, really good. Like, don't get it twisted. He's really, really good and really lethal as an edge rusher. Kyle Hamilton is. So that's going to be one of the guys they send a lot. Pat Queen, don't sleep on him as an edge rusher either. He's pretty lethal as a blitzer. And then Roquan Smith is pretty good. He's short tackler, pretty good as a blitzer as well, obviously. Like, I'm not saying Roquan's a scrub or nothing, but I am saying Roquan, he's pretty good. He's like CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams good, but I don't think he's anywhere above that where we're talking about like Fred Williams. He's not in that same class. But nonetheless, my personal feelings about Roquan Smith aside, I think you could take advantage of that. I really do. Because if they love to send those three guys, well, what do they all have in common? Those are three guys who will probably have coverage responsibilities, or usually are supposed to have coverage responsibilities over David Njoku, which means that they're sending Kyle Hamilton, who's on David Njoku. If they're sending Pat Queen, who's on David Njoku. If they're sending Roquan Smith, who's on David Njoku. And if they're sending both Kyle Hamilton, and I think this is going to happen a lot, they're going to send both Kyle Hamilton and Pat Queen, then you know Roquan Smith is on David Njoku. Or you can bring in Elijah Moore out the backfield and have him run a rail route right into Roquan Smith. And where I do think you can get Roquan Smith, and where it's been demonstrated before, you can get him in pass coverage. He's really good at everything in this game, but he's just okay as a pass coverage linebacker. He's not a scrub, but you can get him. If you're smart enough, if you're on time, if you're accurate with your football, you can get them. So that's what I would rotate around. It's like, okay, how do we, when they send those guys, how do we make sure that we take advantage and get a quick ball off to one of our guys here if Roquan's on a one-on-one? And if preferably you want it to be somebody faster or somebody super athletic that can jump over him so he can't tackle after the catch is made, like a David Njoku. So that's what I would see. I think a lot of David Njoku. A lot of stuff's going to be open in the middle field. They're going to blitz a lot. You're going to have a lot of quick throws, a lot of anticipatory throws in the middle of the field. This is going to be a day for David Njoku. And I think in turn, that's also going to mean it's going to be a day for Deshaun Watson. That's my second bold prediction. I think Deshaun finally breaks that 300 mark this week. Now, that's a heavy task going up against a division opponent, but I think it's doable given how they're going to defend you, that there's going to be good opportunities for Deshaun to do what he loves the most, which is take those chunk plays. Baltimore is not going to play as much too high as other teams love to play. So they're not going to restrain him and put the handcuffs on him. They're going to send him single high looks. They're going to send him, looks where they're just hoping they can get home before they get downfield. And I think Deshaun's going to have some opportunities to hit some chunk plays in this one. I think we're going to see that come back into his game, because a lot of the reason that's not in his game right now is that this too high revolution is forcing a lot of quarterbacks to be more patient than they would want to be. Baltimore's not one of those teams. They're not going to force him to be patient. I think he's going to be rewarded with some big throws down the field if he stays calm, stays smooth, stays in the pocket, stays tall in that pocket, and makes those throws. I think Deshaun's going to have a nice day throwing the football. Another thing I'm going to put here is I think Kareem Hunt will have over 100 rushing yards and 50 reception yards, receiving yards. I don't know why my brain not working. Receiving yards, and he's going to get a touchdown. I think Kareem Hunt's going to have a big day. Why specifically Kareem Hunt? Why the rushing yards? Why the receiving yards? The rushing yards are, well, you look at what other teams have done against this Ravens front. You look at what Zach Moss was able to do last week. I think the rushing yards are there. I think the big plays are there to be made against this Ravens defense. Now, you're not going to get a ton per carry, right? If you get a large per carry numbers because you bust one in the middle of the game, but you're not going to get a ton of like 7-yard runs, 8-yard runs. You're not going to gash the Baltimore Ravens, but you are going to be able to slash them or stab them real quick, right? Gashes are long, drawn out. Like I get a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. You're not going to paintbrush them down the field. What you are going to be able to do is stab them real quick for 20. That was a very violent analogy, but you will be able to do that. And I think Kareem Hunt is the perfect person to take advantage of that because Kareem Hunt, one cut, go downhill, run fast as hell. That's what's going to take, right? They're going to be in some spots where Roquan's going to be on the other side and run fit for whatever reason. They're not going to put him in a position to be empowered. So you're going to take advantage of that, go the opposite way. They're going to be super aggressive or they're going to blitz heavy and you're going to be able to sneak a screen past them. I think this is going to be a good week for the Kevin Stefanski offense. Let's move over. I think also the offensive line is going to have its best game. I think the offensive line as a unit, I think a lot of people are focusing on one or two people on the offensive line when I think the unit has not been operating as smoothly as they want to, partly because it's the beginning of the season. They're still getting used to each other and they added a new tackle on the right side. So there's new, chemistry to be built between this offensive line. So I think they're getting that all together. It's been clear that they're getting that all together. They've been a little impatient early in the season. I think they're going to put together their best game this week because they got to put together their best game. They have to be on their P's and Q's. They have to be able to be patient. They have to be able to make sure that they don't let a free run in and be everywhere that they need to be because Baltimore is going to send numbers at you. They can't overwhelm you with their front four, but they're going to send numbers at you to try to overwhelm and confuse you. And they're probably going to try to overwhelm and confuse DeJuan Jones the most. I don't think that's a great game plan. DeJuan Jones has seemed pretty good through 3 weeks, but I think they'll try to do that as well. 4 sacks on Lamar Jackson is my next prediction. People get this idea that Lamar Jackson's super hard to sack because he's super hard to tackle. I know that might sound like an oxymoron, but Lamar Jackson is tough to tackle in the open field. He's actually relatively easy to sack because he's not in the open field, right? Like when he's in the pocket, he doesn't have the same shiftiness that he does when he's running the football in the open field. So you can get to him. And also, he tends to hold the ball a little bit longer. Then he's more of a, I want to see it before I throw it quarterback. So you can get him there if you want to. And I think that, there's been games where the Browns have done this before under Joe Woods. I don't think that's going to change. I think Jim Schwartz is going to find a way to get 4+ sacks on Lamar Jackson. Another defensive one, I think, and I've been predicting this one for weeks, but this is finally the week where the Browns are going to get +2 in the turnover margin. Lamar Jackson has fumbled a football in every game that he's played in this season. The fumble problem for him seems like it's come back with a vengeance, especially early in the year. Now, last week you could blame some of that on the weather, but that weather didn't start to come in until late. So it's really not an excuse for Lamar. He had 2 fumbles, lost one. He had 3 fumbles in the opener. I believe he had a fumble the week in between that. So he's fumbled a lot. You can get him to fumble. I also think you can get him throw a couple interceptions. If you make him throw down the field, he'll miss, especially if you force him to throw deep. But I think Lamar, he could be in for a little bit of a rougher day. So I think the Browns are going to go +2 on that turnover margin, be able to get some interceptions, be able to get some fumbles, and take advantage of that. And I think Lamar's going to be held under 250 total yards. I'm 100% encouraged by what I saw from this defense against the Tennessee Titans, and 100% encouraged from what we've seen from this Browns defense with Joe Woods versus Lamar Jackson. They still are going to remember the things that worked well against Lamar, and now Jim Schwartz is there to put the polish on, so you're going to be able to do an even better version of that. And I think, protection-wise, they downgraded from Greg Roman to Todd Monken. Now, Todd Monken's better for your passing game. He's a much more competent passing game coordinator. But when it comes down to your protections, I don't think that Todd Monken's the best there, right? We remember how awful those protection schemes were when he was in Cleveland. And those protection schemes weren't that great for Jameis Winston when he was in Tampa Bay. So I don't think that they're going to do the same stuff to kind of contain Miles that they were able to do in the past. And also they have all those injuries on the offensive line that I think the Browns are going to be able to get consistent pressure, which is really going to limit their ability to throw the ball. And when it comes to running, this Browns defense has been very disciplined, very smart, and they have some of the most athletic linebackers, safeties, and corners in football. And that's always given Lamar Jackson fits when it comes to running the ball and doing the Lamar stuff. I think it will continue to do that and give him fits. I think the Browns look good in this one. Those are my bold predictions. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night.